everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cinnamon Stitches. I'm your yarn host, Jennifer. Now, fair warning, there's probably going to be an interruption in about 5 minutes because maybe 10 minutes. Sometime before the end of this video, I can almost guarantee Mr. Cinnamon is going to walk through the door. So, with that being said, let's get started. Now, what I'm wearing, because I know I'm going to be asked, this is a version of the Summer Love Poncho from Lilo N Stitches. However, I did not leave the opening in the front. I worked in the round instead and made it a full poncho instead of an open poncho like hers is. Very easy, very beautiful pattern. I highly recommend it. And because I have been asked in every single video that this has been in the background of, this is not a pattern. Brunhilde is wearing a shawl that I made for myself for Easter. It is not a pattern. It will never be a pattern. I kid you not, I've gotten minimum 10 questions every single video this is featured in. What is that pattern? I need it. It's not a pattern. It's not going to be a pattern. And it was just something out of my imagination. So with that being said, let's get started. Today's subject, I was tagged from Rico Loves Crochet Corner. Her name is Crystal. She is a very sweet person. She's a very dear friend of mine. She tagged me in a hook question video thing. So she was tagged, she tagged me. It is just questions about the type of hooks that you use. She tagged me, Carrie, Penny, and I don't remember who else she tagged. But I'm going to follow suit with Carrie Penny because as soon as I watched the video, I knew I wanted to talk about knitting needles as well. So this is going to be hooks and needles questionnaire. Now, obviously, the same questions do not apply for hooks as do needles. So I'm going to answer the questions that I can and show you and show you what I got going on. Okay, so on one side of me, I have my beautiful made in India carousel thing that you can see is very full with supplies that I need. I have hooks, I have needles, I have markers for my Cricut, I have scissors, I have wires that go to my necklight and also my headphones, which both are used in this room quite frequently. The headphones I use because sometimes, especially when the kids were in school, little man would be at his desk, but I would be working on video, so I would have a headphone on and a headphone off so that I could hear him, but still hear what I was doing and not interrupt him in class because he gets distracted easily. So that is in there, but I also have, let's see if I can lift this thing. My rolling tray. The top shelf is all my hooks and needles. Well, most of my hooks and needles. I can't say all because I have hooks and needles all over the house, including in a drawer over there on my desk. But we're not gonna. And I also have a drawer under my desk. the box that I showed in my room tour video, Mr. Cinnamon made for me. There's a drawer underneath. It has a few supplies, but not a lot. Because I used to keep my hooks in there, and now I keep my hooks in up here. So, yeah. Hang on one second. Okay, so the questions are, what is your favorite brand of crochet hooks? So we're going to cover hooks, and then we'll cover needles, because I have a favorite of both. Now, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, for any time, you will notice every single video you will see me using a Furls Odyssey hook. The Furls brand are ridiculously expensive. I will admit this. I will admit they are an expensive hook. They are, however, beautiful. The handles are very smooth and slick and glittery. And what more can you ask for from a hook? But that's a very small part of the draw for me because I have lots of colors. I have no favorite color. Oh, come on, focus. They're all glittery. They're all beautiful. These are my favorite hooks because of the slickness. I'm dropping stuff out of my caddy. The slickness on the head. Now, this hook is, I probably should have polished it up just a little bit. There's fingerprints. This is what the head looks like. It is very slick and smooth and just works like a charm. Now, it's funny because I've been using these for over a year now. And it was not until I watched Carrie Penny's video that I actually looked at my hook and realized I'm working with an inline hook. Because this whole time, like before I found before I found Furls, I was exclusively a boys ergonomic hook. Like these were it. These were it. These were my hooks. These were the hooks I reached for first. They were cheap. I paid $11 for a full set at Walmart. And these are not inline. These are the tapered heads. I did not realize until watching Carrie Penny and actually looked at my hook that I was using an inline hook. So that's inline to where it's as if you took a solid piece and you cut down into it to make the hook. Which whereas this is tapered on all ends, so it like is formed that way, whereas this is cut into. That's the difference. So that will come back to question again because I did not realize I was using an inline hook this whole time. And they're my favorite. But the reason I like them is because these are like turbo hooks, okay? Now I can crochet with any other hook. I can crochet just fine. But when you hand me a Furls, I crochet about 3 times as fast because they are so smooth and slick and nothing sticks to these hooks. However, I'm going to tell you there's a huge downside to these that I hate. You cannot use rough yarn with these. If you use a scratchy yarn, like I made the mistake, I had my favorite red hook, which I don't have here, but it looked like this one. And I got this as a gift. This was my first, not this one, but the original red one. Was a gift from Robbie. Robbie sent me my first ever Furls hooks, and it was a beautiful red one just like this, and I used scrubby yarn with it, and it took off the coating enough that it ruined my hook. So if you have a Furls Odyssey hook, for the love of God, do not use really rough yarn on this because it will mess up this beautiful chrome powder coating on it. Don't do it. Or rose gold, God forbid you got a rose gold one. So yeah, it ruined right there, that flat part. It ruined it, and actually it made like a piece of the metal like fray out. And Mr. Cinnamon thought he could fix it, so he took a sander to it and actually ruined it even more. So I ended up throwing the hook out, but he replaced it. He replaced it. Don't worry about it. So anyway, my favorite hook, Furls Odyssey. I am not affiliated with them, but I will recommend them to everyone. They are just, this is $30 for this hook. I'm telling you, they're not cheap. $30 for one hook, but to me, they're worth every penny as long as you use them properly, take good care of them. So that's my favorite hook. My favorite hook size, I don't think I have one. I use a variety of hooks, and a lot of these don't even have, another downfall of the Furls hooks is they are marked with a little sticker on the bottom. See, it says a K. A lot of my hooks are missing those because the sticker falls off. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find one. Sticker falls off. No idea what size this hook is. So I would say if I were to guess, my favorite hook size would be between a 5.5 and a 6.5. I like bigger hooks because I like, first of all, I use bigger hooks even with skinny yarn. I don't like working with teensy hooks. Like this, to me, I think this might be a G hook. But I would rather, if I'm using like a 3-weight, I would probably use a 5.5 millimeter hook anyway. Just because I like the loosey drapey openness. Now, I used a smaller hook for this, and I wish I had used a bigger hook because it would have been more drapey. So that's my preference. 5.5, 6, 6.5. Those sizes are my favorite hook sizes. All right. Do I prefer tapered or this says incline, but it's inline. Now, I would have told you until I watched Carrie Penny's video that I preferred tapered because that is what my boy hooks were. This is what I started. Actually, that's not even what I started on. I have the exact hook I started on in this little case. This is where all of my extra hooks lie. And I showed just for, this was a gift. My sister got it from LTD Commodities, and it has all my extra hooks in it, in case my big hooks, well, some of my bigger hooks, and then all of my smaller hooks. This hook right here is the very first hook I ever used to crochet with. It is a boy H or 5mm hook. It has a matte finish on it. This is the first hook I ever bought, ever used, ever crocheted with. And so I started off with just the boy head, which is a tapered head. And all of my other hooks are boy hooks because they were cheap and they were readily available, with the exception of this one singular Susan Bates hook, which is inline. All right, see, focus. This is my one and only Susan Bates. I have no idea, it's a 6mm. Have no idea where I bought this at, where it came from, or how it got into my stash. Is the only Susan Bates hook that I use, and I like it just fine. I mean, I don't really, up until yesterday, I would have thought I was an inline or a tapered girl until I really looked at my Furls hook and realized they are not. They're not tapered. They're inline. So, well, they're kind of tapered a little bit, but they're mostly an inline hook. I guess that answers your question, but I could work with either just fine. It does not make a difference to me to go between the hooks. The only difference is the smoothness on the shaft of the furls is what makes that my favorite hook. So really no preference. No preference. So now, how do you grip your hook? Pencil or knife? I am a knife grabber. Hold my hook like this. And as a matter of fact, I'll show you how I hold it with the furls, because with the furls, now a lot of people complain that these hooks are heavy, and they are heavy. They are heavy, but they're also balanced, so the weight on one side is equal to the weight on the other side. So it makes for a better tool because it is balanced. It's not heavier on this side or heavier on this side. It is completely balanced so that when you're working with it, it's an even amount of weight. It helps to prevent strain on your wrist. It really does. And because it's a heavy hook and because it's so bulbous here and the way I hold my hook is like this, it also helps with pain in my fingers because I'm not, with the smaller hooks, or especially with the plastic hooks, I grip really tight here. And that causes strain here. I can feel it right now. And it causes strain here because I grip hard here. And I hold it tighter because I'm working like this. Now see, you can see there's a little bit of white knuckling happening. But when I work with my furls, I barely pinch it. I barely hold on to it. And these fingers just kind of rest. They don't have a purpose. It just kind of sits in there. It's, I wish that you could feel what I'm feeling through my hands. There's barely a pinch here because it's balanced weight. So I don't have to pinch it. I don't have to grip it. I just let it sit here. I don't even close my fingers, and I do my thing because it's the balance. It helps keep it balanced so that when you're dipping to pull a thing, it wants to pull itself back to level. It's another reason why I absolutely like the furl hook. So that's how I hold my yarn. Does the style of hook dictate how you crochet? Not really. Aside from how tight or how loose I grip. Whatever hook I use does not dictate. It doesn't change. The way I do the motions is just the way I do the motions. So, do you prefer ergonomic hooks or regular? Ergonomic. I prefer ergonomic because, let me pull back my little sticks. You want to talk about wrist strain. And I do have arthritis, so when I talk about wrist strain, trying to hold that. You see my fingers are already just to hold on to it are already way more cup than if I'm holding the furls out and just resting. And also, like, there's a lot more strain here. So I will use these if I'm in a pinch. And they mostly stay in my case because I just don't, I prefer the bigger hooks. Where are we at? What are your thoughts on light up hooks? Oh man. Okay. Crystal was talking about, Ricola's Crochet Corner was talking about her light up hooks. I have 2 full sets of light up hooks. As a matter of fact, I think some of them are in this drawer. Let's see if I can open that with my foot. Nope. I may not have any in here. Looks like little man got in here and put markers. I had 2 full sets. Yeah, there's none in there. Little man filled it up with his markers. I had 2 full sets of the light up markers. The light up hooks. Mr. Cinnamon bought me a full set, and the reason he did is because I was having a lot of eye strain and I couldn't see the dark yarns, and the lighting is, there's not good lighting in my living room. So I'm trying to see if Mr. Cinnamon came home. You guys see in the driveway? Did you see a car pull in? So anyway, he bought me a set of the light up hooks because he thought they would help. The problem with the light up hooks and the way that I crochet, a lot of times the hook will come towards me when I'm pulling through. Okay, the brightest part of the lights is at the tip. Yeah, Mr. Cinnamon's home. I'm going to pause for 1 second. All right, so Mr. Cinnamon is right there. So if you hear noise, it's him. So what I'm saying is, when you have the light up hooks, the brightest part of the light, yeah, like yes, the shaft, the plastic crappy shaft will light up, and they are not smooth and they are not fun to work with. But the brightest part is at the tip here, and every time I turn the hook to pull a loop through, it would shine me right in my eye, and I feel like I was blinding myself. So very, very quickly, I realized that I hate the light up hooks. And then for Christmas, my sister bought me a set. This was before she started crocheting. And she thought that I could use them because I was complaining I was having a hard time seeing dark yarns. So I had 2 full sets of the light up hooks. And they are not in here at all because I refuse to use them. The plastic is garbage. Like, it's a garbage hook. The plastic is so, like, not smooth. There's a lot of drag on the hook. And then with some plastic hooks, you'll get the squeak with certain yarns, so it'll squeak on there. That drives me nuts. And then blinding myself every time I was pulling up a loop, I hate light up hooks. I think they are not worth the money. If you're going to spend your money to try to see better, I recommend the necklight that is completely adjustable. It just hangs around your neck. And Carrie Penny talked about this in her video as well. And the ends are adjustable, so you can rotate them, point them wherever you need to see your work at. And they are different levels of brightness. So there's low, medium, really bright. And then there's also different color levels. So there'll be like a blue light to it, or more yellow light, or like a neutral white light, which is what my light is shining right now, is a neutral light. So that's what I recommend. And actually, I do have an affiliate link for the neck light. I will put it in the description box below. There's never pressure to click those links or buy those links, but those links do help support the channel. I get like 10% back on what you spend on the light. So I get like, I don't know, 12 cents if you buy a neck light, or $1.20. I don't remember how much the neck lights cost, but yeah, I get like $1.20 back. So yeah, next question. Let's see. Have you ever used a hook with interchangeable heads? If so, what are your thoughts? I actually have a video on this, and I will, if I can find the link, I will post the video below. I bought a set of, I don't remember the company now. Anyway, I bought the set from Tuesday Morning, and it was a nice handle that was very similar to the Furls hook. Like, it was bulbous like this, but it had like a lip here, and the heads were interchangeable. And I did a test on them in the video, and I did not like them. I did not like them. I'm spoiled by the Furls. I admit this. So when I was using them, like, I had nothing good to say about these hooks at all. And I had a lot of comments telling me that the hooks needed to be cleaned up, that the heads needed to be cleaned with alcohol. So I did that. And the difference between the head was like night and day. It was almost like taking a plastic hook and then using a metal hook after that. Like, the difference in the smoothness was that different just from cleaning the heads with alcohol. But my problem is the hooks retailed for $40, even though I didn't pay that. And for $40, those heads should be cleaned and ready to be used. So I very much am jaded when it comes to the interchangeable heads for the hooks. And also, a lot of times when you're working a project, I have these little go bags ready. And so I keep everything in this for the project, and I throw it into my big project bag. So in here will be the hook I'm using with that project, scissors, whatever I need will be in this bag. And I throw this into my project bag. The problem with that, the interchangeable hooks, is there's only one base, and there's all these heads that are not usable. So I think if you're only doing one project at a time and you find a good quality interchangeable headset, like, yes, it would work for you, but for me, it does not work for the way that I work. It does not work for the way that I crochet. And I'm really jaded by the fact that I had to clean the heads before I was able to use them. So I actually gifted them to my little sister, and she doesn't use them either. So that should tell you something about interchangeable heads. Do you like projects that require small stainless steel hooks or larger hooks? Now, I have, can you pull out that drawer on the bottom, the big drawer? I have a set of the little tiny steel hooks that I found from the thrift store. Are you looking for the hooks? They're in a black plastic thing. I found these at the thrift store for $3. They are the Boy steel crochet hooks. They are teensy. They start at, it's sizes 00 through 14. So let me show you guys how small these hooks are. You can tell they have not been out of their packaging. I bought them for $3. I've never pulled them out and or used it. Look how small that is. I don't even know what you would use this tiny hook for. Look at that. Look at how tiny that is. I will never use that. However, for $3, I thought it was a good deal for the full set. But I have never used these because even the 00, which is the biggest one, is very small. Come on, focus. It's very small. So that should tell you right there. I like larger hooks. 5.5 and bigger are my favorite. But I will use smaller hooks occasionally for doilies, well, I don't really make doilies, but I do make dream catchers. And to make the dream catchers, I use doily patterns. And I just put the doily pattern in the center of the dream catcher. So I have used crochet thread, and I don't have a problem with using crochet thread. It takes a lot of patience and time because it takes a lot longer to get a bigger project when you're doing that, but you know. All right, if you were allowed to only use 2 hooks for the rest of your life, what size and brand would they be? 2 hooks. They would both be an a Furls Odyssey hook. And probably a 5.5 and a 6.5. Those are the last 2 hooks I would use for the rest of my life. Because honestly, you can do everything with the bigger hooks that you can do with a smaller hook. You can use a small yarn with a bigger hook, and you'll just have more of an open lacy effect, drapiness. And so, yeah. And it would definitely be Furls Odyssey. Hands down. Hands down. All right, so thank you to Crystal from Rico's Crochet Corner for tagging me in this. And I am tagging everyone that has a channel. So if you have a channel and you're watching this video, tag you're it. Make this video and say Cinnamon Stitches tagged me, because I'm tagging you specifically. So there you have it. And that's it for today, guys. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. Okay, so I'm going to add this on to the end of the hook video because I remembered that I forgot to talk about my knitting needles. And I meant to do both, but I got carried away with the hooks. So let's talk about knitting needles. Now, my knitting needles are all in cases like this. This one is mostly DPNs. I have like a lot of DPNs, but there's a couple of circulars in there. And this was a gift from a subscriber. So that's my DPNs mostly. I have a lot of knitting needles, most of which I don't use. And I don't think I have all of my knitting needles here because they're in different places across the house. So I'm going to answer the crochet hook question as best I can in regards to knitting needles. Okay, so the question is, what is your favorite brand of knitting needles? I actually have two favorite brands of knitting needles, and the reason is because I like them for different reasons. I started off knitting with these wooden ones from Premier, and if you recall, there was a catastrophe some time ago where I had this set. The set was like $80 on Premier, and I saved up for it because I really wanted it because it's these beautiful rainbow wood interchangeables. Beautiful. And they had Premier's name on it, and I wanted them. I saved up, I bought them. I really like them. This is what I learned mainly to knit on, because when you're starting to learn to knit, it is really best to start with wood because they're not as slick and as slippery, and you have a less chance of losing your hooks off of the wood. So this is what I started on, and if you recall, my dog Scarlet ate the entire pack and chewed up all of the sticks and some of the wires, and I was actually gifted these from a subscriber. And so now I have them back, and I keep them far away from where Scarlet can reach them. Really didn't think she would eat. She ate the plastic case. She chewed it all up. She was mad because we left her with the dog sitter. I was also gifted this beautiful set. Apparently I lost one. Am I holding it upside down? Yeah, I'm holding it upside down. Let's see, where did you fall out of? 4mm. This beautiful. Lots and lots of hooks or needles in there. So if you're gonna ask me my favorite brand of wood hooks, it's the Premier. It's the Premier, which this set is no longer available on premieryarns.com. However, you can buy individual needles, and you can buy smaller sets of needles, like a 3 set, I believe. Last time I checked, they were still there. So those are my favorite for the wooden needles. But the needles that I use most often, that I just absolutely love. That's not my Chiagoo case. I grabbed the wrong. Anyway, it's the Chiagoo. I have a black and white set upstairs. I think it's upstairs, because that's where I use my needles most often. These are the minis, but there's also these are always living in my bag. This is my Knit Notions pouch. Chiagoo are my favorite. Okay, this is how it's spelled. I have the full set of interchangeables of the long needles, which has the red cord, but I also have the set of shorty needles. So the needles are a lot shorter, and the shorty needles are usually for like socks, mittens, that kind of thing. But I also will use this instead of DPNs to do a decrease on the top of a hat. I will also use the minis. So Chiagoo are my favorite, and the reason they're my favorite, they have a really pointy, really sharp tip on them. Really sharp. And if you are the kind who pushes, a lot of times I will actually get like marks and blisters because it's so sharp. But also, much like my Furls hooks, they are extremely slick and smooth, and the loops just glide. And another benefit is the wire. You notice the wire is just like kind of hanging there. There is zero memory in the wire, whereas you see how there's memory, it keeps it curved. That's the difference. I don't know if you can see. These stay curved all the time, and so when you're working, if you're working in the straight, it's fighting me now that it wants to go back to the curved. And yes, you can loosen these wires by putting them in boiling water. You can do all that, but the thing with the Chiagoo needles is they don't do that. There is absolutely no memory in them at all. They don't fight you. You don't have to heat them up. They go where you want them to go, and they don't stay there. So that's the benefit of the Chiagoo. If you're going to ask me, I would say start with wood. Start with wood if you're just learning to knit. But once you get a hang of it, definitely graduate to the Chiagoo needles. These are my favorite. I don't have a lot of experience with knitting. I'm not a professional knitter. I've only been knitting for a short time, so I'm going to tell you that as a disclaimer. But what I find, I like the Chiagoo the absolute best. These are such, and I've used several kind. I've been sent a lot of needles, and the Chiagoo are absolutely my favorite, hands down. Next question. What is your favorite hook size or needle size? And I'm going to say probably, let me see if I can even read that. These ones right here. These are the ones I use most often. 4mm, which is not what I use most often. These are kind of thin if you compare my crochet habits to my knitting habits, but these are a 4mm or a 6. These are the ones I use most often. These work the best for me for like a worsted weight yarn. But I will sometimes use a size 8, which I don't think I have in here. Let's see. These are US 11s. I use these for my bulky yarn, and these are the wood hooks. I really love those as well. Where is my 8? That's another thing. See these hooks? These are very similar to the Premier ones. I think these were, I don't know, another company. These are just in my bag, and they're unscrewing themselves, even though they've been clearly tightened just from being in my bag. So yeah, I would say either a size 6 or a size 8 is my favorite size for needles. Tapered or incline does not apply to needles, but I like a sharp point as opposed to a dull point. How do you grip your needles? How do I grip my needles? Well, I knit continental style. So, whereas a lot of knitters will hold their let me get some yarn. Ugh. Every time I touch it, slides out of the way. So, a lot of knitters hold their needles, and then they hold their yarn in their left hand and wrap it, okay? Or their right hand and wrap it. Well, because I'm a crocheter, holding anything in my right hand yarn wise is confusing as heck. I don't wrap, but I do it like a different kind of continental. I hold my yarn exactly like I do when I'm crocheting, and I use my finger here to wrap. So this is how I crochet, or I knit. I'll go like that, and I wrap it using my finger exactly the same way that I crochet. It is the easiest to me. I get a lot of criticism from knitters for that, but that's the best way for me to do it. All right. And I think a lot of these other ones don't really apply. Interchangeables. I mean, interchangeable heads, like all, I guess that question, do you prefer interchangeable heads, or how do you feel about interchangeable heads, is the equivalent of using just regular circulars. I don't know why. Using regular circulars. These are regulars as opposed to interchangeables. Okay. Do I feel about interchangeables? Most of mine are interchangeables, but I do like the ones that are just straight circulars. This is just one piece, whereas with the interchangeables, you have the needles and the different lengths of cords, and you screw them on. So the needles come off, and you can change these. There's not a big difference to me. The only problem is with some of the cheaper ones, this comes unscrewed while you're working, or while it's in your bag for that matter. And they do have a tool to help you to tighten that, but these ones come apart all the time on me. But I do not have that problem with the Chiagoo at all. So I guess that would answer the interchangeable head question. And do you like projects that require small needles or fat needles? Fat needles, because when it comes to knitting, I'm a slow knitter because I haven't been knitting that long. And so I like fatter, thicker yarn with fatter needles right now because it works up faster. Otherwise, if I'm working like a fingering weight hat, it takes me like weeks, whereas I can make a bulky hat in a couple of days. Sometimes in a day if I have enough time to sit down and work with it. So, all right. And then if you were only allowed to use 2 needles for the rest of your life, what size and brand would it be? It would be Chiagoo, hands down. Actually, it would be Chiagoo and Premier. It's my favorites. Those, I would have I would have 1 needle from each set, because the wood hooks work better with like a slippery yarn for me, because I don't lose the loops off of the needles as easily. So if I'm working with a really slippery yarn, like if I was working with this yarn was slippery, I would probably use the wooden needles. But if I was working with like a more basic yarn, I would probably use my Chiagoo needles. So I would have Chiagoo, and I would have the Premier wooden ones, and I would probably have them in like a size 4 and a size 6, or a size 6 and a size 8. Definitely. All right, guys. I'm sorry for the discombobulated video and for me having to come back on and scramble to put this part of the video in because I totally forgot. Totally my fault. But I hope that answers some questions about my favorite hooks and my favorite needles while we're at it. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Cinnamon Stitches, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.